Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Good to be back.
Yeah, good to be here.
Okay, so our mission, as always, is to take the stack of sources you send us and really pull out the key insights, the shortcut to getting genuinely informed without wading through everything.
Hmm.
And today we've got something I think pretty much everyone's seen in some form or another. It's excerpts from a source called Simple Healthy Living Tips.
Ah, yes, that kind of title. It's everywhere, isn't it? And it's actually, well, it's quite clever, informationally speaking.
Right.
So our deep dive today, just to be clear, isn't really about whether the tips themselves are good or bad. We're not health experts reviewing advice.
No, not at all.
Instead, we're analyzing the promise, that really powerful promise that's baked into those words, simple tips and healthy living.
Yeah.
Because for you, the listener, wanting to learn but maybe avoid getting, totally bogged down in complex details.
Display information overload, yeah.
Exactly. There's an immediate tension there, isn't there? How can something as, frankly, complex as your own body, your health, be covered by something labeled simple?
That's precisely the mission today. We're going to unpack the structure behind that promise, look at the psychological draw, why it pulls us in, and inevitably the trade-offs. What happens when you try to shrink down this huge goal of being healthy into, like, a list of easy-to-do things?
And we really gravitate towards that list, don't we? Because the alternative, well, it feels paralyzing.
It does.
Just think about the health information landscape out there. It's flooded. You've got studies saying opposite things, dense medical terms, genetics, nutrition science, changing all the time.
Yeah, you read one thing one week, something else the next.
Precisely. And the second things get complicated, often action just stops. People freeze.
Okay, so let's dig into that core promise then. When this source talks about simple tips for being healthy, it's basically making a deal with you, the reader.
Right.
First off, that word tips. That's crucial, isn't it? It's not promising a whole philosophy or some, long academic course.
No, definitely not.
It's promising actionable things,
Yeah.
distinct little steps you can take. It suggests maybe low effort for quick results.
It absolutely creates a framework of low commitment. A tip is something you just try out, right? If it doesn't work, you move on to the next one.
Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah. And that frames health not as this sustained, complex, adaptive thing you need to build,
Which it kind of is.
which it absolutely is.
Yeah.
But it frames it instead as like a series of little tasks you can tick off a list. Done. It's the complete opposite of the decades-long commitment that real health often needs.
And then there's that other word, simple. Now, when I see that attached to health advice, part of me immediately thinks, okay, is this real or is it just a gimmick?
Mm-hmm.
How do we tell when simple is genuine, helpful guidance versus, just a marketing hook to get our attention?
Well, that's really the core of what we're looking at today, I think. Simplicity. When we talk about information, it sort of serves two masters.
Okay.
The first master is usability. It makes it easier to start. It lowers that cognitive barrier, that feeling of, oh God, where do I even begin?
It makes it less daunting.
Exactly. But the second master is the attention economy. We live in a world where everyone's shouting advice online, offline.
Constantly.
Yeah. And the shortest, seemingly easiest advice, that often wins the click, wins the initial attention. So the source is basically betting that high usability, the ability for you to act right now, is more valuable to the average person than getting all the exhaustive details.
Okay, so simplicity is the delivery method, the way to get the information across easily. But we have to talk about the trade-off. What gets lost? What's sacrificed when you simplify something complex? Let's maybe use a really common example. We've all heard it. Walk 10,000 steps a day. Super simple tip.
That's a perfect case study, actually. It's kind of the ultimate simple tip, isn't it? It's a number. Easy to track with a watch or phone. Clear target.
Yep.
It's a static target. Fixed. But here's the problem. Health isn't static. It's inherently dynamic. It's an adaptive system. Your body is constantly adjusting.
Right.
So if you take that 10,000 steps tip, well, you immediately hide all the necessary complexity behind that simple number.
What kind of complexity are we talking about? From my perspective, as someone hearing that tip, okay, I get the rule, I follow it. What am I actually missing out on understanding?
Well, you're missing the absolutely crucial concept of individual variability. One size does not fit all in health, ever.
Okay.
So for let's say a 25-year-old marathon runner, 10,000 steps, that's barely a warm-up. It might offer minimal extra health benefit for them.
Right.
But for an 85-year-old person with maybe some joint issues, 10,000 steps could actually be harmful or just completely impossible to achieve.
So the simple tip is standardized, but the goal, being healthy, that's completely personal, completely individualized.
Exactly. The tip ignores context. It ignores climate walking, 10,000 steps in Arizona. Summer is different from a cool spring day. It ignores geography, hills versus flat. It ignores pre-existing conditions, your diet, your stress levels, all the adaptive things your body needs to consider for that walking to actually be effective and safe.
Huh. So it
Yeah.
almost creates a kind of false metric then.
Yeah,
Like if you hit the 10,000 steps, you feel successful, you get that little dopamine hit,
yes.
regardless of whether that specific activity actually, moved the needle on your personal health goals.
Precisely.
And this ties back to what you said about the listener needing knowledge quickly. You get the feeling of being informed, the feeling of achieving something,
Right.
without actually needing to dig into the underlying, maybe more complicated biomechanics or personal context.
Exactly right. The structure of the simple tip gives you a static checkpoint, a yes-no goal. Did you hit the number? Yes or no. But health, if we really want to connect this to the bigger picture, it demands dynamic adjustment, constant tweaking. What works for you this week might not work next week because maybe you're sleeping poorly or you're under more stress or you ate differently.
Okay.
The source promises a shortcut to this massive goal, being healthy, but it has to do that by offering a uniform solution. And the problems it's trying to solve are fundamentally non-uniform. They're personal.
This brings up an interesting point, though.
Yeah.
If these tips are standardized and they don't really account for us as individuals, why is it often still so hard for people to stick with simple advice long term? If it's truly simple, shouldn't we all just be doing it easily?
Oh, that's a great question. It's often because failure gets blamed on the individual, not on the standardized nature of the advice itself.
What do you mean?
Well, say you try the classic tip. Eat 5 servings of vegetables a day. Sounds simple enough, but maybe it doesn't really solve your low energy issues or your digestion problems. You might feel like you failed. I couldn't even stick to that simple thing. But maybe in reality, the tip failed you. It didn't account for your specific gut bacteria, or maybe how well you absorb certain nutrients or other deficiencies you might have.
Ah, I see. So the hidden complexity, the stuff this simple tip ignores, eventually catches up with you.
It often does. It eventually demands attention. The simple tip might get us over that initial hurdle, that information paralysis we talked about.
Yeah, gets you started.
It gets you started, but it doesn't guarantee sustainable success because it might not be the right tool for your specific situation long term. It's the initial doorway, maybe?
Not the whole house.
Exactly. It serves a really critical purpose, though. Initiation.
Yeah.
Getting started. Behavior science backs this up. Low friction starting points massively increase the chances someone will actually begin.
Right. Makes sense.
So the value of simplicity is huge for reducing that initial effort, getting the ball rolling. The problem comes when people mistake that simple starting point for the entire journey, the whole solution.
Okay, let's pivot slightly then to the ultimate objective mentioned in the source title, being healthy. This huge, sometimes vague end goal.
Mm-hmm. The big prize.
Yeah. The source seems to position these simple tips as the direct path to achieving that state of wellness. Like, do these things become healthy?
Yes. And being healthy, well, that's a multi-system outcome, isn't it? It covers everything from your heart health to your mood, your energy levels, your metabolic stability. It's incredibly complex.
It is ongoing.
It's a constant maintenance process, absolutely, not a destination you just arrive at.
Yeah.
So by putting simple tips right next to being healthy, the source creates this really powerful, very appealing story.
Which is?
That the difficulty is optional, that you can somehow bypass the need for deeper knowledge, for maybe some trial and error, for systemic changes, if you just check off these simple boxes.
That synthesis, that connection is incredibly effective for anyone curious about health, but maybe intimidated. It basically says, here's this massive goal, being healthy, the outcome you want, and here's how you get there, without feeling overwhelmed through these simple tips, the method.
Yeah.
The structure itself becomes the key takeaway, maybe even more than any single tip.
I think that's absolutely right. The primary value being offered when you strip it all down is the user-friendly structure of the information.
Yeah.
It minimizes the effort, the activation energy needed to just start. It acts like a filter, really, against the overwhelming amount of health data out there. It gives you permission almost to ignore the complicated details, at least initially.
And that clarity, that promise that you won't get lost in the weeds, that's what hooks us, right? It gives you something immediately useful, something you feel you can act on without the headache of like needing a PhD in biology first.
Mm-hmm.
So we've established the intent. Make complex stuff approachable. Get people started.
But we always have to circle back to the fact that the information is only simple on the surface. As we discussed with the STEPS example, the underlying systems, your biology, your environment, your behavior, they are inherently not simple.
Right.
So for you, the learner, if you're seeking truly deep, comprehensive knowledge for long-term health, you have to eventually acknowledge that the simple tip is probably a necessary starting point, but it's rarely sufficient on its own.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you, our listener, to maybe chew on, building on this tension we've analyzed today.
Mm-hmm.
If being healthy really is this continuous process, if it requires managing complex biological balances, dynamic systems, things that are, by definition, not simple,
Yeah.
then does the constant search for only simple advice eventually lead you to a plateau? Or maybe even backwards? What is that unseen complexity you eventually have to engage with to turn a quick, easy tip into sustainable, lifelong health? The simple door is open, sure, but what knowledge do you need to arm yourself with once you actually step inside?
That's the fundamental challenge, isn't it? Navigating that transition from simple starts to sustainable practice. Something to really think about. Thanks for diving deep with us on this one.
Absolutely. We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.